I have no gifts in this presentation, so I'm sorry. Alan's already made this better. I said why the future of Detroit depends on its people as the title of this presentation, mostly because I think we asked the wrong question in education, and I'll get to that in a little bit. First, a little bit about who we are. We are essentially a venture philanthropy fund. Some would call us a harbor master kind of organization. We believe in talent, we believe in schools as a unit of change, and we think that quality has to universally get better here in Detroit in order to deliver on the promise for all of Detroit's children here. Let's sort of root ourselves in data and some definitions. This seems like a data crowd. So in Detroit, we believe that quality schools are those who catch kids up who are behind and challenge those who are already on track. For us, and going forward, I'm going to walk you through some maps. Know that for us, that's the definition of the top quintile of student growth percentile in the state of Michigan on the M-STEP. I'll repeat that. So the state of Michigan essentially compares every student's performance, and those who are in the top quintile are the top 20 fastest growing students in the state. They also then sort of average all of those percentiles by school, and so you can get a picture of which are the schools that are growing kids the most on average across the state. And I'll walk you through some maps that show you where those schools are in Detroit. So this map here, the green dots in Detroit are those that are just in the 50th percentile and above. So these are just schools that are growing kids at the Michigan average for a year or more in English and math. The green schools here there are 22 dots, you don't have to count them, I'll count them for you, are the schools that are in the top quintile. Those are the top 80th percentile and above. Those are schools in our city who grow kids in the 80th percentile statewide, right here in Detroit. Why do I show you this? You could view this as a pretty devastating statistic, and it is. 1 in 10 students are receiving a quality education. If you use that as the definition, knowing that the average third grader is not proficient in math, the average ninth grader comes in reading at a fourth grade reading level, for instance, schools that catch kids up are the ones we need in Detroit, and only 1 in 10 schools in Detroit are delivering that kind of education. But I like to view this statistic as showing what's possible. There are actually 22 schools in Detroit that are catching kids up, and what I would like to say is that a lot of the rest of the schools, and in fact lots of us who are tangentially related to schools here in Detroit, I think are asking the wrong fundamental question. Show you what these schools are doing. Murphy Academy is one school on the far west side. It lives in a neighborhood with lots of other pink dots, lots of other schools. You can argue this school serves the same kids as the schools around it. It lives in the same neighborhood as the schools around it by and large. And yet its proficiency rates in ELA are almost double what the comparison schools are. Its SGP is fundamentally better. It is in that 80th percentile when the other schools are at the state average. MLK Education Center, probably the most impressive example of a school that is delivering fundamentally results with the same students. You can see their proficiency rate, 64.9 compared to the next highest around there is 10.8 at Schultz. For ELA, you see their SGP is actually the highest in Detroit at 72 for ELA and at 80% for math. They are growing kids the fastest in the city, and they're doing it with the same kids. And what this means for the rest of Detroit is that we have whole parts of the city where if you're a child growing up in those neighborhoods, you don't have access to a quality school anywhere nearby. You have to take buses, we've all heard the stories. It is hard to get to a school that is going to catch you up if you're a child in Detroit. And so, this is the question I think we've been asking ourselves. What yields these outlier results? I think it's the wrong question. I think it's who yields these outlier results? And so at the fund, what we are doing is putting 95% of our investment dollars in talent and in schools. This is fundamentally different than what most funders have done in Detroit historically, and it's fundamentally different with what a lot of funders do around the country, quite frankly, except in those cities that have been able to move the needle for kids. There are cities who have seen dramatic increases in school performance over time, and it's because they put money in schools and talent. So here's a list of our current programs. We have lots more, but we've launched 2 signature leadership development programs, the DCF Team Fellows, the DCF Leaders Institute, that's focused on training school leadership teams for 2 years at a time. But it's not just focused on the principal, it's the entire school leadership team. So the assistant principal, the instructional lead, the culture lead. We are funding DPSCD through a program called New Leaders to train 60 to 70 principals over the course of 2 years. We're putting 30 teachers in training through a program with MAPSA, which is the Charter School Association here. And we've launched, which you may hear a little bit about when Chanel chats, Teach 313, which is an effort to recruit teachers to come to the city of Detroit, a city that, as you know, has a pretty significant teacher shortage. That's all. Thanks.